Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to see all of y'all tonight. I'll give it a few minutes for everybody to be able to get online and start connecting with us. It's Wednesday night, midweek, and we're just excited about what God's doing. The world is kind of upside down right now, but the truth of the matter is that we serve a God that's fully in control. I'm just excited for all of y'all to join us here. This is still not something I'm super comfortable with. I'm still working on it. And I'm just believing that we're going to work together. We're going to reach more people than we've ever reached before. And just doing it through a different way, a different method. And as y'all are all coming on, just give you a few minutes to get here. And so we can see what's happening here. Got a few things I want us to do tonight. I'm not going to be long tonight. I'm not going to speak a long time, but I think I have something that God has definitely impressed me and given me for y'all. And so stick with me all the way to the end. I've got a special word that God gave me during the night last night. And I think it wasn't just for me. I think it was for all of y'all as well as for me. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight, before we even get very far at all, is connecting. And during this time that we're not connected together, especially with the new things that are coming on board starting tomorrow or tonight at midnight, 12:01, whatever, one of the things that's connecting us is going to be through Facebook, and I'm going to try to reach y'all, call y'all. That's part of the church family, but I want to reach beyond that, and I want you to reach beyond that. I want you to take time to reach out and connect with people. We're going to connect mainly on Facebook. As we walk this journey for the next 30 days or so, we might find different ways to connect, and we'll keep you informed of that, because we want to make sure that we understand exactly what's going on with the church and keeping connected together. But right now, while you're coming on, if you don't mind, if you'll take and start a Facebook watch party. That way we can connect with other people. It's right there on the bottom of your screen, I believe. And just start a Facebook watch party. Start inviting friends to come be a part of that. It's really been a big influence in people that's beginning to watch us, people across the nation. And I even had somebody tell me the other day they had somebody that was watching us that was somewhere there in the Middle East. I don't remember exactly where they told me. But this is effective. There's a lot of people that we'll never see. We'll never know until we reach the other side what we was able to do on Facebook. And just connecting this way right here. So I'm excited. Rather than feeling like I've been shut down because we're not in the church building, I feel like we've been opened up and broadened our horizon, as the scripture said, enlarge my tent, enlarge my area, enlarge my territory. And I believe that's exactly what we're doing here. But if you'll connect on Facebook and get people joined with us, it'll be great. And also if you'll connect, click there for notifications so that whenever we go live, because I'm going to start doing more than just Sunday morning or Sunday evening and Wednesday night. It's my intentions to begin to do a little devotion every morning and maybe even a little devotion every evening. And you don't want to miss that. You want to be a part of that. And I'll probably do those sometime around 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening, and give you a chance to be a part of that right there. That'll be fun and be exciting. Maybe 2 to 5 minutes, not very long. And maybe while you're on your ride to work in the morning or in the evening when you finish your supper. If you're not going to work and you're hanging out at the house, like so many of us are having to do right now, we're not really happy about it, but because we're doing that, you might not be commuting, but you might be able to sit down and drink a cup of coffee and enjoy a little time with us together. One of the things I want us to do is before I forget, I want us to pray for the Wilson family. Everybody knows how bad it is when you lose someone, you have a death in the family. The Wilson family lost Brother Kenneth last Saturday. Tomorrow we are doing the funeral. And to make things more complicated, we're under this restrictive order. Only a very, very limited number of people. That's why we haven't posted anything online for people to be able to go and visit and see him laid out there at the funeral home, simply because it's not really available to us this time. And so that's an additional hardship on the family, and I want you to remember them, pray for them. Tomorrow we will be recording the funeral, so I hope that maybe we'll have it up sometime later on in the day, and you can be a part of that if you would like to click on and watch that sometime later during the day. Another thing that I have included the church in, we have joined thousands of churches around the nation and across the world, and it's called Unite 714. Unite 714. Brother Terry Stoltz is going to be putting some things up for you to be able to connect to or see, and I believe the website is unite714.com if I'm not mistaken. But those will all be listed on the banners and stuff that we'll have. And this is a chance for us at 7:14 every morning. The churches and members of those churches, some I forget how many thousands of members of those 1,000 churches are joining together every morning at 7:14 and praying for our nation, praying against this plague that has come against the world, praying that God will have mercy upon us, and the same thing at 7:14 at night. And it won't be a long time prayer, but it'll be a time for us to pray together and unite. Can you imagine the amount of people that we will be able to connect with and be able to pray with, crossing all kinds of lines? And it's people of all faiths and all denominations, but we have one heart together, and that is for us to be able to reach out and to be able to touch the throne of God and be able to do something great together. There's also other things that you can connect with. Brother Terry's put up some encouraging words, and we'll be adding to those things. I want you to be a part of that. And before I have anything more to say tonight, I need to talk to you about this one thing. And if y'all know me and you know my heart, you know I hate talking about finances. It's the last thing on my list I like to deal with. I get no joy, no pleasure out of talking about finances. But it's important. It's important in this hour that we're in that we don't forget to the church. We don't forget our tithing. We don't forget our offering, our giving. It's important. It not only will keep the church functioning, because the church still has things going. It still has things that we're paying. But the most important thing is we're trying to reach the world. Today I was out running the roads, helping bring some supplies and some different things to people that was in need, single mothers, families that were in great need. We was trying to connect together and use our resources, and the world needs to see Christ. I'm going to talk about that more here in just a minute, that this kind of thing brings out the best in us. But don't forget, and there's a couple different ways that you can connect with this, and I'll mention this again at the end of our broadcast today, but there's a couple different ways you can connect with this. One, right there on your Facebook page, you can connect and be able to give online. You can give all your tithing and things that you want to give. If you want to give to a special cause to helping needy people, any of those things, you can earmark that there, right there on the app, on the connection point. Brother Terry has that up. I believe it's right near the top of the page. We keep it right there. And another way you can give, maybe you don't want to give digitally, even though it's very safe. We use a third-party company called Stripe, who actually does most all credit card transitions that you see. Very, very safe, very secure. You don't have to worry. We never get your credit card number. We never see your checking account numbers. None of that kind of stuff. All processed by somebody completely different that is very trustworthy and very known in the business world for all kinds of transactions. But another way you can give, if you'd like to write a check, you can send that to P.O. Box 831. P.O. Box 831, Ozark, O-Z-A-R-K, Missouri. And that's 65721. 65721. And you can just address that to Ozark Mountain Pentecostals. And we'll get that, and we'll use it very wisely. We're trying to use everything we get as wisely as possible to help as many people as possible and to keep the church functioning as full as we possibly can during this time. And I know that y'all will step up to the plate, and y'all's going to jump right on, because you're a giving people. You're a giving church, and I'm so grateful for you. I'm thankful for that. I want to take just the next few minutes, if I can, and I want to talk to you about something that I believe God dropped into my spirit. And you've all heard the story of David and Goliath. Probably one of my favorite stories as a kid growing up. My mom and dad had this little book that they bought me. I forget the name of the book now. I can see it in my mind's eye. I can see the picture with David with a staff and a little sheep kneeling down with one leg. And I remember that story from my smallest childhood memories. But I love the story of David and Goliath. It has got so many good things in it. And I was thinking about David and Goliath and how that whole thing happened. And We love to tell the story about how David did such a great and mighty work. But what we don't understand is what led up to that point. David had been anointed to be the king of Israel. But after he was anointed, and that's a great story within itself, because David's dad did not even consider David strong enough or smart enough or bold enough or whatever it was to even be called in when the prophet came to the house. His dad marched all of his brothers past him, and David was literally left out in the field to take care of the sheep, not even considered for the job. And yet God seen David way out there in the field, just like he sees you and I oftentimes when we're a nobody, nowhere, nobody knows about us. And so David is finally called in, and the Lord speaks to Samuel the prophet and says, hey, listen, so I want you to know that's the boy right there. That's the young man that I have chosen to be the king. And so Saul anoints David, takes this big old horn of oil and pours over the top of him. And he anoints him to be king. And we would all love it to be, because it's the way that we do things. We would love it if it was just David, let's put down his sheep, and he went right up and joined the king and became the next king. But the truth of the matter is that in reality, David went right back to take care of the sheep. He went right back to the position he had before, forgotten about, playing a harp, taking care of sheep, and doing what he had done before. And so you would think, what would it be that would call David out of the back of the picture, so to speak, and in the backdrop of the picture? He's not even anywhere headed towards the kingdom or to the palace or to the throne, none of that stuff. And so what caused him to come out? You know, I have to tell you tonight, it was trouble. It was trouble that called him out. It's going to be trouble that's going to bring you and I out from the place that we have fallen in safe places at. It's going to be that place that God calls us out from. We love to stay where everything's comfortable. It was comfortable in the field with David. I mean, he absolutely loved playing his harp. He loved taking care of the sheep of his father. He loved doing those things. That was the comfort zone for him. But God had chosen him for a higher destination, a completely different dimension. And yet David still finds himself in the field. But there came a day that the children of Israel, the armies of Israel, found themselves against the army of Philistines. And they was in a place where there was a valley in between them, and trouble. The Philistine army was on the other side, and Israel was on the other side of this valley, and they're kind of on two mountainsides opposing one another. David's brothers are there fighting. And so David's dad calls David from the field and said, listen, would you take your brothers something to eat? I've got a few supplies for them here, and something to bring for the army and for King Saul, and I want you to go and to take these supplies to them and check on the battle and see how it is and come back and tell me. And so David took the run. He went to deliver the groceries. He went to take the supplies, and when he got there, he got the surprise of his life. Instead of an emboldened army that was standing up against the enemy and the Philistines, and instead of that army standing there and boldly declaring what God was going to do and boldly declaring how they was going to take advantage of this situation and win, what he found was people hunkered down, people that was afraid, men that were soldier men, strong, brazen, brawny men, hiding in their tents is what the scripture says. They was hiding, trying their best to steer clear of what was happening on the other side. There was trouble facing them. They didn't know what to do with it. Even King Saul was in his tent, and he was hiding. And David arrives on the scene, and here he has his supplies, and he brings them to his brother. And when he gets there, his brothers, and when he gets there, he begins to ask, what's happening? What's going on here? Why is everybody hunkered down? Why is everybody hiding? Why is everybody trying their best to steer clear of the trouble? And his brothers become very angry, like, who are you to talk to us like this? You're just a nosy little kid up here sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. You need to grow up, and you need to understand that you are not the person that has the right to ask these questions. But somewhere in the midst of all of that, the leader of the trouble, Goliath, steps out. And Goliath comes barreling out, and he walks down. He's this 9-foot tall giant with this big spear in his hand and this big shield in his hand and this sword that's so huge it's overwhelming even to look at. And he is so big and strong and powerful. And he says, give me a man to come out here and fight with me, because nobody can defeat me. Isn't that kind of what we're seeing today? You ever seen that in your life when this problem comes up against you and it seems so big and so strong and so brazen, and it's defying everything in your life and everything that you believed in and everything you thought you could do, and it's defying it. And all of a sudden you think, I just got to hide. I got to get away from this thing. Even the pandemic that we're dealing with right now across the world seems to be going right up in the middle of our face, saying, you can't beat me. You can't overcome me. Hide. Get in your house. Get away. Hide yourself down. And I understand that. I understand exactly. I'm not saying that we should run around and be crazy and all that kind of stuff. But it's put us in a position where we're having to rely on something besides ourselves. It's put you in a position. It's put me in a position. It's put our homes in a position, our families in a position, where we have to rely on something besides us. And so David, he hears this giant make these things, these defying remarks, and give me a man to fight. And if I win, then we'll be your servant. And if you win, then we'll be your servant. And vice versa. And he's throwing this challenge out there, and David can't take it. Something wells up in the side of him. You ever had somebody throwing down the challenge to you, and all of a sudden something just wells up in the side of you, and you're like, you're not going to talk to me that way. You're not going to do me that way. I just believe that's how David was. Maybe just a mix of adrenaline flowing and a mix of fear flowing. He's trying to think, what am I going to do? I can't let this big old guy sit down and make us look like a bunch of idiots. I believe God began to speak to him. And David declares, I'll go fight. I'll make up the difference. You guys, I understand where you're at. I'm going to make up the difference. They get angry with him, and they take him to Saul. And Saul says, well, listen, man, the best thing that we can do, David, is we can get you and put you in this battle here of mine. But it wasn't what David was accustomed to. Here David was the sheep herder from the backside of the fields, thrust into a position where all of a sudden he's got to figure out what he's going to do. I believe the church is being thrust into that position. The church, not a church building somewhere, but the church, you and I, those of us who have been called for such a time as this. I believe we've been thrust from back where nobody even recognized or knew who we were to the forefront of the battle. And we're going to be difference makers. You see, David couldn't operate in Saul's equipment. David couldn't operate in Saul's agenda. David only knew how to operate from his line of view, his position. And that was to call upon the name of the Lord, to trust God to make up the difference, to bridge the gap. And so there we find David. He finally decides and tells Saul, I can't use your stuff. I'm going to use what I know how to use. I'm going to use this little slingshot. Oh, it wasn't those kind that you pull back and release and those things that we had played with as kids and that type of thing, but it was an item that he put something in and would sling it around, and somehow it would open it up and it would shoot the projectile. And David goes down and finds some smooth stones, and he puts them in his little pouch, 5. I don't know what the 5 was for. Some people say it was Jesus for Jesus. Some say he had some brothers. The truth of the matter is we don't know. We just know that David thought, I might miss the first time maybe. I don't know. But I'm going to have some backup. And he heads off to meet this thing that is defying and made everybody hunker down in their tents and hide. This one young man, they say he might have been 17 to 21 years old. And he steps up and says, I'm going to do something great. I'm going to change this position. I don't know what's going to happen here. And he walks out there to meet Goliath, and Goliath starts making fun of him. What are you, little child, a dog? They would send me a dog. I'll throw your flesh so high in the air the birds will eat it. He just starts belittling him. But David understands that Goliath is not dealing with him. Goliath is dealing with God. And he said, I can trust God. It's the same God that delivered a lion and a bear to me. I can trust him. And all of a sudden he walks out and begins to wind that slingshot up. And he begins to aim it towards that giant. And he doesn't know exactly what's going to happen, but he's doing what he knows to do. He's trusting God and using what he knows how to use. Every one of us have a tool that we can use, and it's called prayer. It's called bold faith that's loaded into our prayer. It's faith that believes for bigger things. And so I believe that there is David loading faith into his prayer slingshot. And he takes it and slings it. And God guides that faith, that projectile, that stone that he had, guides it right in and hits Goliath between the eyes and the forehead where he didn't have protection. Suddenly, David runs to where Goliath falls down, grabs his sword, and cuts off his head. They start chasing the other army, the Philistine army, out. But by the end of the day, Goliath's head is in David's hand. And David carries it off to Jerusalem and drops it for the people that controlled Jerusalem at that time to understand he had won. By that night, they're singing, Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000s. You see, it was trouble, and I'm fixing to finish here. It was trouble that brought David from the back pasture to the forefront where he could change a nation. It was trouble that brought him from keeping sheep to killing a giant and bringing a whole army under subjection of an army that was afraid. It's no accident that today in 2020, while we as a nation are trying our best to hide and keep from all the trouble that has come our way, that I believe God's called the church, you and I, to step out of the pasture, out of the background, and step into our destiny and step into our next dimension. I believe God is calling you now. And I'm asking you to step up to the challenge, to pray prayers that's so big that you've never prayed those kind of prayers before. I believe God's calling you to a challenge to give like you've never given before, because you're going to be a difference maker. You're going to help to thrust the church and the calling of God and the gospel message out into a world that we've never reached before, because you stepped up to the challenge today. And I want you to know that God is for you. Last night as I was praying during the night, God spoke these two phrases to me. And I believe it was for me and for you also. The two phrases were these simple things right here. My grace is sufficient. And the second thing he gave me was, I will strengthen your hand. I believe God is with his people. And I believe it is our time to reach the lost and to stand up and make a difference in the world. And I know that we are going to do it together. Don't fear. Don't fall back. You might not be able to leave your house at the moment, but you can stretch beyond the borders of your house and your city and your nation through your prayer and through your faith. And I'm calling you to that tonight. And I'm trusting that you are going to do this with us. And I'm believing for it. Once again, as I'm finished up, I want to remind you, stay connected on Facebook. Hit the notification button so that you're notified when we are going live. And also, take time to give of your finances, your tithing and your offering, so that we can reach further than we've ever reached before. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all tomorrow morning. God bless you. I love you.